Hey, how's it? Morning, Monday morning, back in the office. After, as a whole, a fantastic 2 days out on the bikes. Actually, 3 days out on the bikes, 2 nights away. And, generally a good trip. But as is always the case, there have to be certain letdowns. I'll start with the highlight. The highlight was meeting people at a coffee shop called Fresh, and phenomenal people, also with the same interests, obviously, as us, being primarily off-roads, dirt bikes, but secondarily, people that have got a heart for South Africa and are hoping to, do things that can benefit themselves and South Africans within South Africa, and which are more and more becoming exceptionally difficult and horrific conditions, particularly for white people. And, I've never been that guy, but I had some experiences this weekend that really made me think. I'll start with personal experiences. First of all, going through the border at Maseru, Ladybrand, that side, was once again shocking to me, in that when you're on the South African side of the border, the level of competence and the level of interest in the job description of the individuals that are dealing with you is actually, it's not even apathetic, it's actually outright hostile. On the way in particularly, people are just rude, they throw your passport around, they talk to you like you're a dog. There's absolutely no idea of public relations, there's no idea of expediency, there's no idea of anything. We have a border control office there that's got something like 9 or 10 or even 11 windows, one window working, and that window in a container outside, And then you move over to the Lesotho side, which is, landlocked, and the people at the official people are friendly, they're efficient, they it looks like they want to do their job. Let's do it that way. And I can tell you from a perspective of being a former criminal that to get anything illegal in and out through that border post would be a breeze, an absolute breeze. If I wanted to smuggle arms, drugs, people, whatever, it wouldn't take much effort. That I can tell you. And then we went into Lesotho, and I spent a day at the Roof of Africa, and what I found there is that, at least at a bare minimum, there's some development going on. There's petrol stations being built, there's roads being revamped, there's odds and ends going on there. And as a whole, I found the people once again to be pretty friendly and nice people. But, there's always that element of people that are blatantly outright racist and make you feel unwelcome in their country. You particularly see when you ride your motorcycles there, that the kids there, are either trying to throw stones at you or are throwing stones or pretending to throw stones at you. And there's people that, as you ride past or as you move through certain areas, are just blatantly outright swearing at you, telling you to F off and get out of their country and all of that type of thing. And, it's fascinating to me because the Roof of Africa is without a doubt the biggest event on the sports calendar, motorsport, in Africa. And I would hazard to guess that hundreds of millions of rand are plowed into that country every November, by motorcyclists, dirt bikers, the organizers, the spectators, the followers, the alcohol sales, the food sales. It's just off the wall. The catering, the hotels, to try and get place to stay during the Roof of Africa is almost an exercise in futility. And you'd think that people would be happy to be hosting and welcoming people who bring that level of money into their country, but it appears that some of them simply are not. And then when you come back, right, once again, you glide through the Lesotho side, and then, as soon as you cross the no man's land over the Caledon River and you come into South Africa, once again, 2 officials, a queue of probably 150, 200 people. Everyone is, just talking cuck and not doing their jobs. And then when you finally get through passport control and you have to leave the country, you've got 4 policemen sitting at the gate who are doing their absolute ultimate best to look as disinterested and not interested in doing their job as is humanly possible, leaning against the wall, one sitting, sleeping in the chair, pulling these I'm so super bored faces, and, you actually getting in the way of my rest type deal. Those of you that have experienced South African government officials know exactly what I'm talking about, but at a different level. And then we get back to the coffee shop, and one of the youngsters that was with us unfortunately couldn't get his passport in time, so he hung around in Ladybrand waiting for us while we went to watch the roof. And he was telling me that the level of racism that he experienced in Ladybrand was just at a rate he'd never seen in his life. He went to ShopRite to get us some cool drinks and that, and he's just telling me, that the people are openly hostile to the point of becoming semi-physical, bumping him out the way, hitting him with trolleys, not allowing him to get to the fridges to get a cool drink. He gets to the till to pay, they throw his things down like absolute blatant hostility and racism. And then you drive around or you ride around in Ladybrand. I also had a bad experience. Well, first of all, let's start with the roads. The roads are non-existent. So in order to get in and out of that town, if you don't have an adventure bike or a flippin' bucky, you're going to battle to get in and out of that town. It is just absolutely something to behold. Fortunately, our friends, their coffee shop is right at the entrance, so you don't have to deal with any of that if you go to their coffee shop. So, don't worry about that. You just drive straight in and you're there. But on another, and then we went to a dinner at a place we found on the thing. I think it's called Cranberries or something like that, Cranberry Restaurant. And it's in like almost like a mall of restaurants. And we sat down and we ordered a fillet steak. Very expensive fillet steak, but literally, the worst steak I've eaten in my life. Absolutely worst. The place is supposed to be a great place, and it's really not. And, on the way back, the guy that had the directions back to the lodge sort of got ahead of us, and I got a little bit lost, and I was driving around in the town trying to get out. And at some point, some dude in a bakkie with 5 other guys on the back tried to pull me off the road. For what reason, I don't know. And then jumped out of the bakkie, started swearing at me and getting very aggressive and threatening. So I just hit the gas and I left them behind. But this is the attitude that is pervading that place. And I'm finding that attitude is starting to creep in all around this country. This blatantly hostile, racist attitude against predominantly white people in this country. And, it's really got me to thinking, especially that, I went to this roof this year because my wife went to visit her kids in Australia and New Zealand. And they're sending me pictures from Australia and New Zealand. The one picture that has really stuck in my mind, they sent me a video where they're standing on a bridge over a river. And would you believe it, the river is crystal blue. The water is beautiful. The area around the water is absolutely pristine. There's no filth, there's no dirt, there's no hatred, there's nothing. Just a couple of people taking a stroll on a Saturday morning on a hiking trail, going to see a waterfall and going to see a river, where there's lots of people also doing the same thing. And, there's absolutely no issue. People are just living their lives. People are just doing their thing. And there's none of this, highly political, highly hate-centric thing. I've never in my life come across a nation of people that hate other people so much for a reason that is pretty much, we destroyed our own country and we're blaming you for it. That's pretty much what it is. At the end of the day, we had this whole apartheid thing, we had all of that stuff, but you didn't want to live under that system, which is rightfully so. You wanted independence, and you wanted self-governance, and you wanted your own leaders, and you wanted freedom, and you wanted all those things, which is wonderful ideals, and you received exactly that. You received your own leaders, you received your own economy, you received everything you received. You received a fully functional running country, and you've taken that entire thing, right, and you've completely destroyed everything, and then you still want to blame the people that you took it from. And this is what's happening in South Africa. And so many of us, and I've been speaking to a lot of people, you've got two groups of people within the white community. You've got the groups of people that are literally prepared to stand and fight, okay? And then you've got another group of people that are looking at it and going, well, what are you fighting for, and what is the chances of victory, do you think? And that's the big question, But when I look at what my missus is experiencing overseas, and what potentially I could be experiencing overseas versus being sworn at and threat of attack. A friend of mine's best friend got shot and killed last week in a home invasion. Woke up in his bedroom, found 3 assailants in the room, and the next thing they shot him. They shot him through the stomach and he died. And he's living in a upmarket, safe area, patrolled day and night by security companies with razor wire and electric fencing and beams and AR cameras and all of that, and he's dead. It didn't help him at all. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going to die, which ultimately we're all going to die, is that how I want to die? Locked up in a box that's called my home, which, pretty much keeps me inside, but doesn't appear like I can keep anyone out? Or can I go to a country where I can live out, my retirement and just chill out and go and see the sights and know that I'm 100% safe? And there's no hatred towards me for being there. And there's no, nothing. So these are questions I'm really starting to ask seriously. And it's quite something, I'm actually at a point where I'm thinking, well, you want Africa, have it, bro. Really have it. We can see what the results of you having it are. Particularly when it comes to this Ramaphosa idiot still swearing at Donald Trump. Do you have no sense, but the whole world is capitulating to that guy. The entire world is capitulating because they've got sense. They know that you can't do business without America in the world today. Maybe in 100 years from now, things will change, but right now. And what are you? Screaming and shouting to the point where your former Minister of Foreign Affairs has had her visa cancelled there. Can't go there. And that leads me to my last question. For people that hate America so much, why are you so upset that you can't go there? What's the problem? You said, you keep your America, we'll keep our South Africa. Donald Trump said, cool. Then you don't need to come here. And that's pretty much it. It's very difficult to live in a country where there's no common sense when you're a person with common sense. And a lot of questions going on in my mind. But, am I prepared to live in a place for the rest of my life where everywhere I go, people either want to kill me or just outright hate me? I don't know, bro. What do you say? Give it some thought. Cheers.